the Chartered Accountants of India, and he's a fellow member of SEMA as an organization. He did his doctorate from the University of Allahabad, and he is visiting faculty. He has been a visiting faculty for Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and SP Jain Institute in Mumbai. Over to you, Professor Bhattacharya.
Okay, Bhaskar, good evening. Let me clarify that I was not visiting faculty. I was a full-time faculty here, Bhaskar, and for quite long in all the institutes. It is a privilege for me to speak before all the experienced participants. SEMA and Nonlinear are holding these webinars for last 2 months, and this is the last webinar for July. And earlier webinars got excellent response. I hope today's webinar also you would like. I will make a presentation and try to explain as per my understanding about the leadership during disruption. But as I said, that we shall have questions, answers, rather discussion on the issues. And I don't believe that is only from my wisdom. Discussion will be from all the participants. We shall have enough time to discuss because we are all leaders in our own way. We all have our views. We all have seen the world. We all have seen the leaders. We have worked with leaders. We have also a lot of followers. So we all may have something or the other to say on the leadership. And therefore, I will try to close by 8:05, 8:10, and then we shall take forward the discussion. You write your questions on the chat box. We shall take it at the end. But when I say questions, it is not questions really. These are observations. Because it is not a QA sessions and it is really a discussion. Because I always feel that when I am in a session with such senior people, then I learn more rather than what I deliver. And that learning comes from your participation, and therefore I look forward to your participation. Now I am sharing the screen to begin. Swati, are you able to see the screen? Okay.
I'm able to.
Thank you. Thank you. When I look at this screen, there is a quotation. And the quotation is given by someone who was considered to be a very famous French philosopher, although he didn't accept it. And he won the Nobel Prize in Literature, but he died at a very young age of 46. I do not know really that whether this quotation is relevant for today's discussion or not. But I thought it is very important for us to start from here. Because when we continue to do our routine, sometimes we have to stop and really we ask why. And this why has a very wide connotation. We ask why maybe, why we are living, what is the meaning of our life, why maybe what we are doing and why we are doing. So this question is very important for us to ask. It is not possible for us to ask that question day to day working. We have to continue to work. But sometimes we need to sit back and ask why. As I said that I am not very sure whether this quotation is relevant for today's discussion or not. But this question is absolutely relevant. This quotation is absolutely relevant in our life. We are all leaders.
Sir, would you want to put it on PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, it is a PowerPoint presentation only. No?
As in, on the right hand side below, there is an icon if you would want to put it on that. On the side, more side. On your right. Yes, this one.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. We are all leaders. We don't need a label to become a leader. And when I say that we are all leaders, it means we all should start thinking like a leader. And I am not exaggerating. When we were kids, we used to play games with our parents to get something which we thought was important for me, important for us. We used to persuade our parents to bunk a day in the school to go for a movie or to go with friends to go for a picnic. That means we wanted to always get the result which we thought is right at that point in time. At that point in time, quite possible that we really did not know that the result I am looking for is the best result for my future. But yes, we always try to work with our parents for the results. When we are parents, when our role becomes a parent, then we try to get our children to do what we like them to do and feel that by doing that, they will be happy in their life, at least till they attain cross the teenage. I will not say attain the teenage, cross the teenage. After that, we say that you decide what you think. But before that, we try to persuade them. There is a leadership role for us. When we speak with our spouse or live-in partner, and when we don't discuss heavenly things or which is close to soul, we discuss material things. We try to make our spouse agree to what we feel is right without hurting her and without disturbing her joy or his joy. And when we go to a club, we feel that the decision what we feel is right should be accepted by the majority. And that is why I say that we all are leaders without a label. And that is why we should start thinking like a leader. And once we start thinking like a leader, we evolve as a leader through our experience. But if you want to become a leader, you be of your own. You learn from others, learn from top leaders. We read the stories of CEO. Perhaps today also I will bring the examples of CEOs, because when you occupy the position of a CEO, you get many opportunities to demonstrate your leadership skills, which you may not get when you are not occupying the top position. But if you imitate, you will never be a leader, because your leadership should fit with your personality, your temperament, your traits. So continue to learn from experience, from leaders by studying what others do, but don't imitate them. Therefore, if you want to be a leader, we need to work in different settings, different situations, different jobs. And once we do that, we hone up our leadership skill. And we should continuously evaluate our leadership like a bystander and understand whether we are acting like a leader. We have taken this topic of leadership through disruption, not because that we are passing through a very, very disruptive phase in life, socially and economically, because of the pandemic. We have decided this particular topic because even in absence of pandemic, companies, business firms face disruptions. For example, when a new business model comes in and someone new entrant comes with a new business model and challenges. For example, Uber has come, we have seen. In that case, there is a disruption on the existing players. If there is a merger and acquisition, there would be a disruption. In a private company, family business, if there is a death of the Karta, there may be disruption. For example, when Dhirubhai Ambani died, there was a turmoil in the Ambani business. Therefore, disruption is a part of life. And when we talk about leadership in disruption or through disruption, we are saying that the leadership should be such that in this crisis situation, we are tested. Yes, we can manage the disruption. And that is why I have taken that topic. We have heard about the term VUCA. It is an acronym for volatile. Volatile means rapid change in situation. When we look at COVID-19 as an example, we find that situations are changing very rapidly. It is uncertain. We cannot predict the future. We don't know that what is going to happen in future, when vaccine will come, when government will announce another lockdown, how much we should be allowed to work, whether our workers will come back to job. So it is a very, very uncertain future, and therefore we cannot predict the outcome. It is complex. Multiple forces confound and cause the confusion. There are many actors who are playing. For example, when we talk about a complex situation, if we take the example of COVID-19, every day various write-ups are coming, government is saying, experts are saying, what protection is required. But every day, when you open the newspaper, they show that most of the people are not following that. Why? Are they risk averse? They want to take risk. They don't care for themselves. They don't care for the society. Or it is quite possible that in India, socialization is so important that we are uncomfortable when we are not able to get socialized. I don't know, but definitely there is no uniform understanding of what is the risk, and risk appetite is different for different individuals. Similarly, government comes out with new rules, state government comes with another rule, employer says with another rule, and therefore the situation is absolutely complex when different forces confound the situation, and it is ambiguous, hazy. We are unable to see beyond. It is like a fog, and in the fog you cannot see what is there just up away from a few kilometers. Similarly, that happens when we talk about an ambiguous situation. Therefore, in a VUCA world, when there is a disruption, it is a VUCA situation. Therefore, it is not just a buzzword, it is the reality of life, not only in business, but in personal life as well. And therefore, it is important, friends, that we learn leadership, we understand leadership, and see that we can steer through the VUCA situation whenever it arises in our personal life or in our professional life. This is the agenda for the day: leading through disruption, leadership styles, authenticity, authentic leadership, developing authentic leadership. What happens when there is a disruption? There is anxiety all over. Team members are worried. I am using here team members. If you are a CEO, you will talk about employees. If you are in a club or society, you talk about other members. I will continue to use the term team member to represent whether we are talking about employees or we are talking about members of a smaller team. So they are all worried. There is huge anxiety. What will happen? Will company lay me off? How company will decide what will be the layoff policy? For example, Jet Airways said 10% will be laid off. It's not Jet Airways. Indigo says 10% will be laid off. Or Jet Airways, what happened when it really went into bankruptcy? So in all this situation, nothing is certain. Everyone is very worried what is going to happen. And it is found through research that they show counterproductive coping behaviors. It means that either they say nothing will happen, that is, ignore the crisis, or they panic. And that is what is being told, the term being used, counterproductive coping behavior. We are seeing that in COVID-19. In the earlier stage, we thought many, oh, nothing will happen. When summer comes, the virus will die down. But that didn't happen. And when that didn't happen, now panic has gripped us. We are not allowing our family members to enter home from isolation if he or she is COVID affected. So this counterproductive coping behavior is normal. There is nothing abnormal into it. And then individual protective and facilitative factors. What are those? Self-confidence, discipline to work, and family support gets weakened. There are families where there is no earning. Where is the family support? Because everyone thinks that everyone's responsibility to bring money and carry the expenditure of the home. And therefore, in this situation, the confidence is low. There is no work discipline because you may or may not have work. The discipline has been totally distorted. For example, now we are working from home. Earlier, we were habitual in the morning going to factory, going to office, talking over phone, flying from one city to another. That discipline has gone in the COVID-19 arena. And family support is very, very weak because everyone is panicked. Who will support whom? And leaders work towards survival and building resilience. In this situation, what is the job of the leader? Leader's job is to survive through the crisis and be resilient. For example, in COVID-19, we are saying that yes, crisis will be over one day. We really don't know whether it is 1 year, 9 months, whatever. A new normal will come. We don't know who will die and who will not die, but we know that even if those who are affected, 95% will not die. And therefore, as a society, it is resilient. But at the micro level, is the company resilient? Is the family resilient? If you are the karta of the family, you have to pass through, you have to take your family through survival mode, through this crisis and say that, yes, we shall survive the crisis and you should try to build resilience. We have to come back. If we can't build resilience at this stage, we shall not be able to come back. And therefore, as a leader, whatever might be our level, whatever might be our position, wherever we are, we have two important tasks: to survive through the crisis and to build resilience. Leaders preserve protective and facilitative factors by extending their helping hand. You have to extend the hand to your team members, your family members. Communicate with every team member, ask them. We say that people first policy should be adopted in a crisis situation. We have to talk about their well-being. You have to talk about what they are doing. You have to talk about what kind of support they are required. And not only the team members, but of their family, because the worry is not about me, worry is about my family as well. The important aspect is that if I am the leader, then I should make my employees face down reality. Help them to understand the reality. It is not very easy. As I told you, that in the initial stage we have seen in the COVID-19 era, that there was no realization that the crisis is a crisis, is a crisis. Pandemic is a disruption which occurs once in 100 years. We try to find out, we try to underplay that. And we thought that nothing will happen. Problem is that if you want to build resilience, if you want to survive within the crisis period, you have to take hard decisions at the beginning. And whether it is a family or it is a business, it is a profession, it is very, very difficult for your team members to accept hard decisions unless they realize that that is necessary. For example, in the business, if you say there will be rotation of the employee and 50% pay cuts will be there will be huge agitation unless and until the employees realize, your team members realize, that is the only way for the survival during this period, because crisis is very, very significant. It is disrupting or will disrupt in a way we shall not be able to come back unless we preserve the cash, unless we reduce our production. Now, this understanding at the early stage is absolutely important. And that is the job of the leader, to make their team members understand how serious the problem is. And then the leader has also to share the bad news during this kind of disruption. Pandemic is one example, but as I told, there can be number of disruptions that might be caused in an industry. Now, therefore, in this situation, when there is a disruption, perhaps you have to say some of your team members, you are laid off or you are losing the job. How others will react, how that gentleman will react, whom you are saying that you are laid off. Or you are saying to your girl child or son that we shall not be able to send you to coaching because there is no earning. Everyone will accept that, all this what I have talked about, only if you are trusted. If employees, team members, family members don't trust you, you will not be able to provide this kind of support we are talking about. When you help employee face down reality, they will say, oh, he is exaggerating. Nothing will happen. He is creating unnecessary panic. So you should be respectable, you should be trusted. These are the two things which are important if you communicate. For example, I joined an organization and immediately asked someone, why are you taking your meal alone when others are taking together? It sends lack of authenticity, because you know that if you go to someone who is a stranger so far without understanding him or her, he or she will not reply the right answer. Still you are asking. So the most important part is that unless you are respected and trusted, your touch will be taken as mockery of the things. It will not have any impact as such. What we are going to do, you will not be able to do. And therefore, what is important is there must be a trust environment that as a leader, you have to create. When you lay off an employee, if you are trusted, if you are respected, people know that we have made the right assessment. People know that you follow equity, and therefore, if you have identified someone, there is rationale and logic behind it, and there is no option for you but to lay off someone. Therefore, what is important is you as a leader should be trusted, should be respected if you want to survive or ensure survival of the team, survival of the organization, and create resilience. What happens? When we are child, we go to our father and in difficult situation look at him. Why? Are we sure that he has all the power to provide a solution? Perhaps not, but we trust him. We know that if you go to him, definitely he will help me. We go to parents and see that they will actually arrange the support if they don't have for our welfare. Suppose a rumor mongering is there, what up university is going on. Will you rely on that? If I come to my team members and say that, don't go to the WhatsApp message which is coming, they are not reliable. I am giving you the reliable information. Shall I accept it as a team member? Answer is no. I will accept it, of course, if it is from me who is trusted by my team members, if I am respected. And you recall and remember that during the period of this kind of turmoil, disruption, rumor and grapevine news information flows in abundance. And the moment you are unable to provide the right information, you are unable to provide the right guidance, it creates utter confusion, and all your efforts to ensure that the organization is surviving through the crisis and your effort to build resilience will fail. Again, I am saying, perhaps I am emphasizing too much, that it is trusted and respected leaders who can only lead through disruption. Unless you are trusted and you are respected, please be sure you will fail in a situation when the company is facing disruption, there is adversity. For example, when we talk about COVID-19, I am taking an example because that is for us. Then you have to develop what we call bounded expectation. You don't say that there is an over expectation. We say everything will be all right. What is the problem? That doesn't work. Or if you say, no, it is a very serious thing, we don't know whether I will die or not. Now, sharing of personal information is very important to create that kind of trust situation, to create that kind of trust environment. But how much to disclose? Should I express my panic with my team members? Then I will create panic. So as a leader, I should be able to balance how much to share, how much not to share my personal information. That is very important because I want not to create an expectation which I don't believe in. At the same time, I also don't want to be very pessimistic. I don't want to share my personal worries. If I say that I am also worried like you, I don't know what to do. Do you feel you will be able to lead the team? The answer is obvious no. And therefore, in this situation, a leader should be matured enough to understand how much to disclose, how much not to disclose. Therefore, what is important here is the way we have discussed so far, that you can manage, you can lead in disruption only if you are respected and trusted. Should we start creating trust and environment when disruption starts? For example, after the COVID-19 came in, no way. You cannot do that. You should be, or you should be such a leader from the beginning that you have created a trust environment. You cannot say that now it is adversity, so I will create a trust environment. Is that possible? It is not possible. And therefore, you as a leader should very well know that you should continuously create a trust environment within the organization. When I say organization, it may be any organization. And you should be able to build the kind of relationship with your team members, which is absolutely important to create that trust environment. Now we shall talk about a few of the leadership styles. We know that there are generally leadership styles are classified into 6 leadership styles. Coercive, I will not discuss. The days of command and control has gone. It doesn't work anywhere. Forget about adversity. It doesn't work in a normal situation. Can you get results by command and control? No, no way. Today we are talking about knowledge workers. We are talking about even skilled employees. When we talk about manufacturing, they don't take command and control approach, and you will not be able to get the result. Command and control work perhaps sometime, or worked, I will say. I will not say work, I will say work in the past when there was no such dynamic environment. For example, in government office, people used to say, "Piche dekh, aage chal." See what has happened. Is there a precedence? And no one knows better than the boss. And therefore, boss can throw files and say your writing is absolutely rubbish. Write again. They can say you don't know the rules. Go and see the 10 years back file. But when the situation is dynamic, changes are occurring every day. No one knows that whether the wisdom lies with the team members or with the leader. Then command and control doesn't work. Therefore, I will not discuss that. I will say that it doesn't work anytime. Forget about in adverse situation. When we talk about authoritative style, what happens? It is an excellent style when a new vision is to be created for the organization. Then the leader brings the vision, explains the vision to the team member. It may be for a department also. For example, a marketing department chief may providing a new vision that how to market a new product. So the leader sets the vision, defines the jobs and sets standards, links those jobs to the vision, and explains the vision to the team members, and say that how effective performance of the team members contribute in achieving the vision. And therefore it gives autonomy. It says that you decide how to work, a lot of independence, because it believes that they are competent to decide, to innovate how to achieve the vision. But this style doesn't work in adversity. When you are passing through an adverse situation, there is no question of giving a new vision to someone, to the company, to the organization, to the function, to the team. It is a question of survival. It is a question of building resilience. And therefore, this style will not work. You don't leave the employees in that when they are not in self-confidence, where they are losing faith in themselves, their capabilities. They are worried about what is going to happen tomorrow. In that situation, this style will never work. Affirmative style is the best thing to do, because here the leader takes the people first approach, and it creates the kind of relationship we were talking about. So it says create a team spirit. It showers positive feedback in abundance. It takes failure in its stride and says that yes, it is a learning if you have failed, and shares his or her own emotions with the team members. That is what is required when we talk about managing, leading in an adverse situation, in adversity. And therefore, this is the leadership style that works best when we talk about leading in adversity. Democratic style doesn't work. Here the leader wants to build the consensus. And you might have seen in number of organizations, there is a style of working. Any problem, create a committee. So you find that there are 100 committees because 100 problems. That is what is the essence of democratic style. What happens in that kind of style? Everything gets slow. So meetings become important, results become secondary. And therefore democratic style doesn't work even in the normal time. And when you say democratic style, it may also create a kind of conflicts among the team members. And therefore, this is not at all suitable in normal situations, and of course, in adversity. Pace-setting style is also absolutely bad when we talk leading in adversity. For example, you get a top-notch leader and he runs in a very fast pace and wants everyone to run in that pace. Now, this doesn't work in adversity, because when you are a pace-setting style you adopt, then you want everyone to run along with you. And if somebody fails, you want, I change my team member. So failure is not acceptable. And in that situation, in normal course, if you want pace setting, then perhaps you have to select the right team members, which choice seldom is available to a leader. Second, we must also appreciate that when we pass through an adverse situation during adversity, it is important to slow down the pace, not to run fast, because you cannot take a decision. In a VUCA world, for example, when there is a fog when you are going through the highway, or you are passing through a river, or passing to the bank of a river, you go slow with a light on. If you try to run fast there, quite possible you will lose your life, and you will also create loss of life. And therefore, it is better that when it is an adverse situation, please, please, please go slow, reduce your pace. Therefore, this style also doesn't work. Coaching is a good style, but then it is a long term. You cannot get immediate results through coaching. And this style also doesn't work really during the disruption, adverse situation. The reason being, here, the leader when the company or the organization is going through adversity has no time to coach. And what you coach? Again, learning. Coaching means the team member should be able to learn. But when they are not in the right frame of mind, where is the learning? Therefore, coaching also doesn't work. And therefore, friends, there is only one leadership style that works, and that is affirmative leadership style. Look at the Steve Jobs style. I will take a pause and request you to read it. It is very interesting. I have taken all this from the biography of Steve Jobs. Velvety diplomacy was not a part of his repertoire. There is zero tolerance for not performing. For almost a year, Jobs ran operations after the manager resigned because he could not take this kind of high performance standard, and Jobs could not recruit someone whom he found suitable. So he himself, think about a leader who himself is doing the job without ignoring and doing the most critical job because he is unable to recruit someone right for 1 year. People were allowed, even encouraged, to challenge him, but he would attack the employee as he processed the idea. So he will challenge you. You challenge, it's fine, to Jobs. And it is encouraged. But he will tear you down when he will process your idea. Most interestingly, he will say, oh, that is a stupid idea. And after a few days, he will come back and say the idea he likes. Yeah, that means you could win him. He will say, here is what we are going to do. And you would like to say, boss, I gave that idea 2 weeks ago and you said that is a stupid idea, but you cannot say that. What you will say? You will say, that's a great idea, boss, let us do that. Now that was the Jobs style. And on the deathbed, Jobs told Lisa, his daughter, you will smell like a toilet. And remember, when we read all this, are we talking about a trusted leader? Perhaps yes. He was abrasive, he was aggressive. But one thing was clear, he knew what to do. He was very clear about what to achieve, and he was very clear how to achieve. And the most important thing is, he was allowed to challenge his ideas, but at the same time, he was not polite. And remember that when Jobs rejoined the Apple, it was on the verge of bankruptcy. And therefore, it was going through disruption. But he turned around Apple and made it, now we all know, the most respected brand, highly successful company. When I read all this, or you read all this, do you believe that style is important? To me, it is not. What is important is trust, trust, and trust, and respect for your knowledge, for your competencies. Forget about a style. You can have any style, doesn't matter. So long you are able to earn the trust of your teammates and they respect your capabilities. Forget about a style. Don't bother at all about a style. I have included the style slides because when I go through the leadership literature, I find a lot is written about this style. But those who are good leaders don't want to fit themselves in one or the other style. Rather, they combine all these styles and get the results. Friends, so one thing is very clear, that a leader should be respected and trusted if you want to lead during disruption. We are taking the case of disruption, which is the extreme situation, but generally also it is important that one should be trusted. And there comes the authenticity. Interestingly, if you read the definition, we are saying the unobstructed operation of one's true or core self in one's daily enterprise. Now, a question will arise. We can ask, what is true or core self? Is it informed? From the date of birth, we know what is our core? The answer is no, it is not. When we are thrown in the real world, we experience, we have to get results. We work, we act. We try to accomplish what we are given to accomplish. And that is the world which is not created by us. That is not within our control. We have not created. It is given. We are thrown in that world and we have to accomplish results. And in the process of accomplishing results, we become a particular type of person. So true or core self is not something which is inborn. That is a wrong impression. That was an impression long back. But today, philosophists and psychologists say that true self is evolved. It evolves through our experience. We become a particular type of person, and that is our true or core self. But when we say we are authentic, we are driven by that true or core self. There are 4 components of authenticity. First is awareness. If you are authentic individual, if you have to be driven by your core self, then you should have knowledge of your motives, feelings, desires, self-relevant cognition. Sometimes we say, oh, I don't know what is my motive, what I want to do. Then you cannot be an authentic person. If you have doubt about your motive, can you be an authentic person? If you say, I don't understand my feelings, sometimes I get angry, you don't know your emotional strength. You don't know to control your emotions. And you say that I don't understand the feelings. So unless you know what are your motives, your feelings, what you want to do, what is your desire, your self-relevant cognitions, that means the relevance of information, relevance of learning, which is relevant to you for achieving your goal, unless you understand all this, you trust all this, and you try to augment all this over the period, you cannot be an authentic individual. Awareness, you must know what are your likes and dislikes, what are your strengths and weaknesses, goals and aspirations, your temperament, what is called dispositional characteristics, emotional state. Now look at this picture of Sourav Ganguly. What this picture says, passion and aggression. Now I was reading an article on Sourav Ganguly, and it says that one thing which distinguishes him from others is his spirit of Sourav Ganguly. What is that spirit? His spirit is passion and aggression. He knows. He came back by and by. Once he went back, he was dropped from the team. He came back as a captain. You know that he was not appointed as a vice captain. When it was recommended by 3:2, there were 5 members in the selection committee. Why you know? Because 2 members, the coach said he drinks Coca-Cola too much and therefore he cannot be a vice captain. But 3 members said that cannot be a criteria. He should be selected as vice captain. But then the administrators, that means the secretary and others, they reverted back. They say, you consider again, because the coach is saying that if he is drinking Coca-Cola, he cannot be a vice captain. And 1 member said, okay, fine. Now I am withdrawing my support for Sourav, and therefore he cannot be a vice captain. So he defeated in 2:3 vote. But ultimately he came back. You know what happens with Chappell. Now this all shows that he understands his likes and dislikes, his strengths and weaknesses, goals and aspirations, dispositional characteristic and emotional state. Unbiased processing. You get information and process it in an unbiased manner. Either you don't become, sometimes what happens? We become defensive. Somebody says, boss, this is not the way you are doing. You become defensive and you want to defend your position. Or you, as a self-aggrandizement, high ego, you don't really process the information that flows down to you. If you want to be authentic, please have unbiased processing of information. Behavior. Here Narayan Murthy is there. You recall that when there was a corporate governance issues, Narayan Murthy placed in the media and fought. He said there is no compassionate capitalism. The values in Infosys were lost when Sikka was appointed as the CEO. And the whole board was to be reconstituted. That means he behaved in a manner which is very close to his personal values and preferences. He does not behave falsely. He does not behave to please others, to avoid punishment, or to get reward. His behavior outcome is self-awareness and unbiased processing of information. Relational authenticity. Here we are talking about that when you are building relationship with your team members, your family members, your friends, it should be genuine rather than fake. You are transparent. Others really know what real you are, and you make others also to mutually be transparent, to understand for you, to make you understand that what they are. Therefore, this authentic relationship is very important. We are talking about the trust, creating a trust environment. Unless your relationship is authentic, you cannot create a trust environment. What happens when there is a social sanction? Perhaps you have joined a new organization and you wanted to demonstrate yourself, unbiasedness, but you find that the environmental forces are creating social sanctions. Then what you do, if you are an authentic person, you try to understand what is the fit or lack of fit between you and the environment, your true self and the environment. And you demonstrate heightened awareness about what will be the implication of your behavioral choice. So you have to make a choice. Temporarily, you may say that I will accept what is being, what the forces are compelling me to do, and you get into a conflict situation. But you take the decision, you make the choice after clearly understanding the consequences. And if you are very uncomfortable, then you want to leave that organization. It is very important word about authenticity. It is not a compulsion. It is free and natural to demonstrate your core feelings and motives and implications. So this is what is very, very important when we talk about authenticity. Who is authentic leaders? Authentic leaders are deeply aware of their values and beliefs. They are self-confident, reliable, and trustworthy. They focus on building followers' strength, broadening their thinking, and creating a positive environment in the organization and the organizational context. How they behave. Again, you recall what we talked about authenticity, and from there only the authentic leader's behavior comes in. Again, we are talking about balanced processing, internalized moral perspective, relational transparency, and self-awareness. Most importantly, the balance between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. That means if you are an authentic leader, you really don't worry too much about the extrinsic motivation. You don't say that I will work only if I get money. It comes from the job itself. You enjoy the job, you enjoy the task, you enjoyed your relationship, and therefore you balance between, you don't say, of course, that I will not take money and I will leave, but definitely you don't depend only on intrinsic motivation. And external factors don't motivate you that much as intrinsic factors. That means the task itself, from the work itself, from yourself, you enjoy your happiness. G.D. Bidla is an example of authentic leader, because authentic leaders solicit views from others, have the potential to challenge his existing position. Remember, we mostly try to get an opinion which will support our viewpoint. We try to avoid take an opinion that will challenge our current view, current position on a particular issue, particular matter. And before taking decision, they analyze all relevant information. That means they are open to get information, but they know that that information may challenge their position, and they are ready to change that position. It is a G.D. Bidla story. Bidla's clan was boycotted by the community, Marwadi community, because G.D.'s elder brother at 30 years of age became a widower, and a marriage was arranged with Sharda Devi Jawahar, a Kolwadi, a Marwadi from UP. And Calcutta Marwadis thought that they are alien and it is a marriage outside the community. So Bidla's clan expulsion was there, and it was so intensive that the diktat was leave them or join them. He turned to Gandhiji for advice. And what Gandhiji said, as usually we can now expect, tolerance. And GD at that time at 38 years of age was unfamiliar with this. But he followed that. He realized that tolerance is the best thing. Tolerance is the best thing. And ultimately, the boycott was withdrawn. Authentic leaders have internalized moral perspective. You go by your values. That means you hold your values in different situations. You behave, you try to take decisions based on your values. You are not succumb to the pressure from peers, organization, or whatever it may be, external pressures. And that is why what is required if you want to be an authentic leader. And JRD's one act at least gave us an example that that is what he does. And although I have not brought here another thing, a very interesting thing before you read it, I will try to present before you that on the table of JRD, there was anti-aircraft gun, which he was manufacturing for British. And by the side, there was a portrait of Gandhiji. So it is a conflicting. It can be seen by many, it is a hypocrisy that at one time you are supporting the British, helping them by manufacturing that anti-aircraft guns. On the other side, you are holding the portrait of Gandhiji, who is going to fight against British, of course, in a ahimsa manner. But it is very clear communication from his side. I don't mix business with politics, and therefore my business is separate and politics separate. This is just counter to what G.D. Birla did. He gave full support to Gandhiji, and there were many other businessmen who gave that kind of support. Now, this story is very interesting. That when he started the Tata Airlines, then Vincent was a pilot who supported him, and Tata told him, JRD told him, I will give you 1/3 of the profit. But in 1938, when the business picked up, the legal advisor told him that we should sign a new agreement because when you promised the amount was meager, now it is crores and crores. And JRD said, okay, fine, let us draft a new agreement. When the draft agreement was given to Vincent, he was very, very unhappy. And of course he was unhappy. He should have been unhappy and he wanted to resign. Eventually, JRD said, no, my oral commitment, verbal commitment is much more important and I will honor that rather than writing a new contract. And it haunted him throughout his life. He said to his biographer, in retrospect, I asked myself, why did I allow the situation created where I made David feel that I was not fair to him? It was one of those rare occasions when I regretted my inability to stand up immediately for what I believe. An authentic leader always stands up for what he believes. And therefore, if you want to be trusted, authentic leader, you should be driven by the values rather than by external pressures. Authentic leaders also make personal disclosures, openly share information, express true thoughts and ideas. And an example is Lala Sriram. He was not founder as such, but in initial stage, he built DCM. And I am given an example where he addressed to his employees. Very interesting. He was going for Europe for the first time in 1929, and the workers gave him a farewell party where he said, I was trying to think what it was that I have done to deserve this long address, presented in this beautiful casket, purchased from your hard-earned money. But I could think of nothing extraordinary that I have done, that I have always tried to remove all real grievances that came to my notice, openly admitted my inability if it is so, and I never knew any sort of distinction. Gentlemen, we have made a reference to a very delicate matter. What I mean, the absence of a strike in the past and formation of union in the future. I feel that workmen have a right. See that how honestly he is expressing his ideas. I feel that workmen have a right in extreme cases for joint action. but it is a remedy for which the employer and their employees both should not allow an occasion to come. So it is a straight way coming from the heart, and it is a disclosure what is important. Self-awareness, you should be aware of what are your strengths. I gave the example of Saurav Ganguly when I was talking about authentic individual. And here I am talking about authentic leader. Look at, I was telling at the beginning that you should not have a label as a leader to start thinking like a leader. Irfan did not have that label. He was an actor and he never led a team, but he thought like a leader. He knew what are his beliefs and feelings. They know their strengths, weaknesses, etc. And most importantly, they also have reflected self-image. That means how others see them. And if you see Irfan, again, we can read from one of the tribute which was given to Irfan. I have not quoted, but I have taken from there. Irfan did not exhibit features that define mainstream actors, heroes. Dancing was not his specialty. He did not cause a heat wave in the hearts of women and showing muscles, nor did he show off many karate skills. He chose film based on his strength and succeeded. The cost of not going the path paved by others was huge. It took more than a dozen years for his Indian career to break through, yet he remained steadfast in his decision. So this is very important. He knows that I cannot be a mainstream hero, and therefore he waited for 12 years to get a breakthrough. And therefore, when we talk about an authentic leader, he must understand his strengths and weaknesses. He also chooses how to present himself. He remains authentic, yet does not present all his segments before others. He presents the segment that is required in a particular situation. The authentic leaders control how others see them. Again, read this story. When he was asked to, when he joined back, he was given the designation interim CEO, and he was asked, please drop down that interim CEO. And he was asked to take stock options, but he did not take his stock options. He did not really agree to drop the idea of interim by committing himself. He drew only $1 per year. And when he was asked why he is doing that, he told his mentor, the board chairperson, I don't want the people I work with in Apple to think I have come back to get rich. See, he has made a decision, he has made a sacrifice because he don't want that others will not respect him or trust him. He wants how others should see him. Then after 2 years, he dropped the tag interim. And what happens then? So when he announces that he has decided to drop the interim part, the crowd jumped to its feet, screaming as if Beatles had reunited. Job bit his lip, and then what he says, I get to come to work every day and work with the best people on the planet at Apple and Pixar. But these jobs are team sports. I accept your thanks on behalf of everybody at Apple. He knows how to present himself where and when. So he knows the right time and how he should present himself to earn that kind of respect and trust. Authentic leaders' traits are chameleon. They retain the distinctiveness as individuals, yet they are accepted in the corporate and social culture. And they use those elements, that social culture and corporate culture, to bring radical changes. They create the perception of an authentic leader by maintaining consistency in words and deeds and presenting different faces to audience. This is very important. They don't show the same face to everyone. They know that what segment, what face they have to show in different places. For example, when he sits in the board, he has a different face. When he goes to the customer, different face goes to employees. So an authentic leader does not mean that he will open up everything before everyone. That is not how it works. They are highly attuned to the environment. They know what is the environment is all about. What is the environment? And accordingly they act. They understand the expectation and concerns of people. And most importantly, how they understand that based on an intuition developed in the formative years. So I was talking about that you evolve. And I was talking about that you, through your experience, once you are thrown in the society, in the workplace, which is not created by yourself, you have not contributed that workplace. And then you come out as a particular type of person. And therefore, and that all happens mostly in your formative years, perhaps till you are in the class 12. And that intuition helps you to understand the environment and the people. Now, what happens in practice? Most great leaders have highly developed social antenna. They recognize what followers are consciously or unconsciously signals using complex mix of cognitive and observational skills. Authentic leaders create just enough distance. Please remember what is written here. Just enough distance from the normal. That means an authentic leader, if he wants to be successful, he knows how much he should accept the norms, go with the norms, and how much he should not. Because too much conformity makes the leader ineffective and isolate him. And if he conforms too much also, then identity is lost. I always look at Gandhiji. He left his attire and taken an attire of a dhoti and only dhoti, only to mix with the people whom he had to live. And therefore, you have to mix with people, yet you have to create a separate identity for yourself as a leader. That balancing act is very, very important, but very, very difficult as well. Chameleons, there are two types of leaders. One is the characteristic of a chameleon. They do not feel fake while adapting to the demands of a situation. They care managing their public image and try different styles until they find a good fit for themselves. Although they express their true chameleon nature, they are in the danger that they may be perceived as disingenuous. Now, when I was talking about the leadership or authentic leadership, I already explained it. That an authentic leader acts like a chameleon, change colors depending on the situation. But still he is authentic. He is authentic because he acts on the direction of his deep core, his values. But only thing is that he changes colors depending on the environment. He understands the environments well, and therefore he succeeds. There is another type called true to selfers. They don't have the flexibility of that of chameleon. They tend to express what they really think and feel even in the situation which does not demand that. They stick too long for comfortable behavior. For example, when they are promoted, they always talk about, feel about what they did in the past. And research says that those who are true to selfers, they are very unsuccessful in taking new positions, in taking new jobs. And they want a comfortable behavior. When we say, I want to be authentic, what I am trying to say is that I want to continue in a comfortable space. I don't want to come out of it. And therefore, one who is true selfer almost is a failure. They find it difficult to manage the tension between authority and approachability. True to selfers often find getting by distasteful. Often you will see that someone says, I am working so much, I am doing that good job, boss should know that. Someone may say that boss should have the eye. Why should I go and sell my ideas to him? Why should I say that I have the capability? Now they are true selfers, but chameleon will persuade the boss, persuade the team leader, persuade others that yes, this is my idea, particularly in the initial stages of the career. Now, in practice, there are some guidance available. Self-disclosure can backfire if it is hastily perceived, poorly timed, or inconsistent with cultural or organizational norms. For example, you are appointed a director of, let us say I am Calcutta. You go and say to your professors, oh my God, I always aspire for it, but I am at sea, I need your help. Is it the right disclosure? Answer is obviously not. You are losing your credibility by disclosing it, although your true feeling is that I am in the sea. I don't know how to manage it. I got it, yes, fine. Or you are going to talk to a dean of another school and say that I always dreamed to be a student of your school, but I could not clear CAT anytime, I could not get into. But I want a collaboration with you. Do you feel it will fructify? Chances are not that it will not fructify. So disclosure is important. I say you should be transparent, make others feel transparent. You should understand what you are, and you should also allow one to understand what you are. But and finally, you should have a good communication skill, because unless you tell your story well, it will be meaningless. How you develop authentic leadership? Not by introspection, because introspection often reinforces own belief. But you should accept the feedback in a playful mind. That is very important, not under tension. You cannot process it well, but you should accept the information in a playful mind. And information comes not only through feedback, through your experience you gain. When you try new approaches, you give it a feedback whether you are successful in that or not. You work in different settings, but again, the key word is it should be a playful mind. And introspection doesn't help. That you should keep in mind. And the leadership evolve from their childhood story. So you should create a narrative around your story. Usually what it is found that you refine those narratives also as you gain experience. Reframe your life stories, and discovering authentic leadership requires lifetime commitment like artist or sports person. Two important things which researchers find out while talking to large number of leaders, successful leaders, there are trigger events in your life. Something must have happened which has helped you to discover your core, and that is how you develop your authentic leadership style. And you may have transformative experience. Something has happened which has transformed you in your new and altered sense of identity. So you should look back and see that what has happened. Usually what happens, we remember our stories, but don't build narratives around it. We need to build narratives around it. We have to see that how I reacted in that situation. We have to see that what has happened to me at that time. And that is how you develop, you identify your core, and that core drives you to take actions, to behave. Therefore, finally, what we want to say is authenticity matters, style does not. So you should be real, you should be authentic, don't bother about this style. It is very unimportant. What is your style of leadership? Yes, in literature you will find there are many books available to you which will say that there are so many styles of work, but most important is you should be authentic, you should be real, you should not be false, and you should be genuine. Here I am quoting a poem from Gitanjali of Rabindranath Tagore. He says, the child who is decked, I am unable to see the whole thing. Okay, if you can read it, the child who is decked with the princess attire and who has jeweled chains, he loses his pleasure in the play and hampers him at every step. In the fear that it may be frayed or so, he even cannot move. The poet says, mother, it is no gain that you shut my door from the dust of the real dust of the earth, and it is not a great fear that I am away from the common people. What I thought that this poem is saying, relevant for our discussion, that if you feel power like the princess attire, you will not be able to move, you will not be able to contribute. if you see that power is to serve others, power is for serving the organization, serving your team members, serving others, then only you are successful. Otherwise, like the child who is decked with princess attire, you are away from the humanity, you are away from the masses, and you are unable to take the dust, and therefore you fail. So if you take power to serve others, you are successful. This is also an interesting quotation. You please read it. It says that, but it is written by a physicist, that you can never approach perfection, but you should continue to strive for it. And it says that some don't bother about it, some discover it, and some strive to approach it like in the art. Friends, I promised you that I will close around 8:10. Now it is 8:16. I have passed 5 minutes more. So thank you. And now we can take questions.
Mr. Ram Sudarshan, do you want to go ahead? You raised your hand.
Just a minute, just a minute. Yeah, now we can go.
Mr. Ashish, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. My question is, does leadership come only with age? Can there be leaders at a very young age, let's say 35, 40 years? Is the society willing to accept leadership at a young age in the corporate world, whether people do consider people at a very young age to be leaders based on the performance criteria?
See, my age when I was at 40, gray hair was important, but not today. It is maturity is important. And if as a leader, there are political leaders who at very young age got the acceptance, then there are political leaders even at 50 is thought about child and young. So the question is not that of age. Question is because you evolve as a leader, not at the latter part of your life, during your formative stages. And therefore, age is not important. And you can see today that in corporate, there are many middle-aged people who are in the top position. After all, when of course, I admire Saurabh Ganguly, perhaps his name comes all the time in my tongue. But the most important is that he was accepted as a leader. Maybe in sports, that is the age to be a leader, but he demonstrated all leadership qualities. And today you said at the age of 40s, late 40s, he is the head of the administration of BCCI. It is not a very small organization. It is the most rich organization. And therefore, I believe it is acceptable, provided you are an authentic leader. Mr. Ram, have I answered your question?
Yes, definitely, yes, sir.
Okay, any other question, please?
No, sir. My question came on the background is that I was working as a head of finance for a company in Chennai, based out of Chennai, from 2015 to 2018. But when the company started growing sporadically, we multiplied our top line by about 3 times in 3-4 years time. So it overpassed my an individual's growth. So right now I've become a middle level position. I have a CFO and a group CFO. So my question was that basically is it, I'm 37 years old. So the decision was made based on various criteria that as a company was growing so fast. So I felt that I was, I had been held back, even though I did perform fantastically from all.
No, then Mr. Ram, you know, it is the company's culture. If you see that there are young entrepreneurs which are doing well and leading the company, it is the company's culture. And if you go in a, I will say, which is carrying the legacy of old persons to be the leader, then this kind of situation might occur. But generally, it is accepted that at a young age, you can also be leader. Look at HUL, and there are a large number of companies where gray hair are not the leading, their young people are leading. There are many questions which I see here. One is Mr. Subramaniam. Great Hofstede, while exploring national differences, talks about individualism and collectivism. Some countries people follow collectivism, need social framework, members protect others. That is, workers in Japan prefer group reward and not individual reward. Most of the jobs are for life. Does the national sentiments play a role influencing the corporate leadership? Your perspective. The most important part of Mr. Subramaniam, Dr. Subramaniam, is that how the country has evolved is important. The culture of the country is built on that. If you see the history of Indian corporate, you will find Marwadis were there and they helped the clan. But when it comes to Bengalis, they don't support the clan. So the question arises that how a particular society evolved and what has happened in that society and how they are helping. So it is not very important about the country only. Even different segments in the country, different communities in the country behave differently. And when we talk about leadership, of course, culture is important. If you look at the life of Bidla, he carried forward very many inefficient people in his organization because they were Marwadis. At the same time, he had people who were extraordinary performers. So he said, I will carry the dude, I will pay them, I don't mind that cost, but I want performers to lead my organization. I am an avid reader of G.D. Bidla's life, and I find this trait in G.D. Bidla. Have I answered your question, Mr. Subramanian?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Khandelwal wants to say something.
Yeah, Mr. Khandelwal, please. We are unable to
Sir,
listen.
you're mute. Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, Professor Bhattacharya. You have very correctly and quite elaborately you have discussed about the leadership. Incidentally, to some extent, I have been in my own field also. I have been carrying out such assignments during the last 4 decades. I would just like to have your views on a very limited issue, that for a true leader, it is always good to listen to the team members, as you have also narrated very carefully, but without immediate reaction, and the decision should be taken after a gap of some time. So that if a decision is taken after some time and a thought process should be there by the leader, then how to take it or what should be ultimately the way forward. So some amendments can be there on the team members also, and own decision can also take. This has been my view. Instead of taking a decision exactly on the same moment, I think these are the two things. How do you take that time gap should be there while taking a crucial decision? Because for a good leader, immediate decisions should be avoided. This is the way I look at. What is your take on this issue?
I agree with you. I recall that in Hindi there is a saying, "Sunna sabki, karna man ki." So you listen to everyone, but do whatever you feel is the right thing to do. And to process the information which you get from others, you may take time, but sometimes quick decisions are required. I can give you an example of Rahul Bajaj. During the license Raj, everyone was running after getting a license and diversified. But Rahul Bajaj is stick to one thing, two-wheelers, and two-wheelers. And he never diversified. So he listened to everyone, but did what he thought was the right thing to do. And therefore, you are absolutely correct that you should listen to others, process it, and then take decision.
Good.
There is another, is it all right, Mr. Khandelwal?
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Dr. Subramaniam says, sir, you have a great industry experience in this COVID situation. Have you come across any corporate recruiting, promoting, giving pay hikes, etc. to all its employees? I doubt that at this time to give increments and other things, because this is the time to cut costs. Rather, most of the companies, I know companies which are good companies that are cutting down the cost by reducing the pay of top echelon, but not reducing the pay of lower level employees, because their capacity to carry forward their family for survival they need that money. So these are the different policies we talk about. But at this point in time, I cannot think of recruiting is always there. Recruiting is happening, but promoting is not happening. And of course, pay hike is also not there. Professor Anandapal has a question. If leadership is thrust upon blind authorities, does it not affect the authentic leadership to find its way? If you are uncomfortable in the leadership position, give it up. My question is that if you want to occupy a leadership position, first you should ask, shall I be comfortable in the leadership position? Many may not be. And therefore, leadership cannot be thrust upon. It should be chosen. It should be voluntary. And if you voluntarily take a position, definitely you will be successful. But again, I tell you that I have seen many leaders who are not authentic, who are fake, and they occupy the leadership positions. And their socialization skills, emotional understanding, they take for their own benefits rather than the followers and the organization. So don't take trusted leader. And in one of the slides I said that if you are an authentic leader, you don't blindly submit to the environment. You understand the environment, you understand the consequences of your actions, but your action should be from your core. And you may temporarily take some actions which will conflict with your core, but then you decide, okay, enough is enough. I look for other opportunity because your survival is important. Or you say, let me survive and then I will change, bring changes in the organization. So it is very important for you to develop that kind of instinct to understand the environment. Professor Pal, have I answered your question?
Yes,
Professor Pal?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is clearly explained.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
I have another question.
yeah, please.
There I have submitted them, I think.
Yes. There is a question from Mr. Tilak Gulati, then I will come to your next question. Each moment, everyone becomes a leader because somewhere someone starts following him. If due to wrong action of a leader, the follower suffers, how the leader should behave in that situation? Accept the mistake. That is the only thing an authentic leader will do. He will say, I am very sorry. That was my decision. It has hurt you. If I can help you anyway. But it sometimes happens that leader also cannot help. But then you should accept that, yes, it is a mistake on my part. So a good leader accepts the mistakes as well. Professor Pal, your next question is, in disruption, when known strategies are useless, is it not more difficult to communicate the out-of-the-box decisions to other members? It is her satisfaction to participate in such a discussion. My question is that you have to think about innovation when we are talking about survival in adversity and for building the resilience. And if you are a trusted leader, again I say, authentic leader is the only leader who is trusted. Then if you share some thoughts, if you ask someone, can we think like this? Can we do like this? Because what happens in a disruption, the most difficult thing happens, you withdraw resources from your workmen and try to get that kind of result from your team members. And therefore they should understand how to give the similar result with smaller quantum of resources. And then you have to earn trust of them. Or if you are trusted, you will try to innovate to say that, जिसको हम हिंदी में कहते हैं जुगाड़ लगाना, कि during this period, how with the innovation, freak innovation we can call, we can really give the results. And it does not become difficult if you are trusted. So first you should ask yourself, are you an authentic leader? If you are, you are acceptable. And second is, of course, your capability. You should demonstrate that you understand the job. You are capable of taking a decision, assessing a situation, and you are not just dictating that do it. Whatever resources I have given, work with it and do it. That doesn't help. They need your guidance. Professor Pal.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
There is another question from Amitabh Banerjee. Why do you think that Asian Paints gave pay rise and promotions in COVID-19? Was it a prudent business decision will it retain the staff better and increase loyalty? I don't think that today, when we talk about the employees, then pay hike is a method to retain the talent. It is not. Asian Paints is a company which is generally doing quite well. And therefore, it says that I have enough cash reserve, so I can pay a hike during this period. I need not have to pay a hike only in this situation. But you think about Indigo, which is really suffering huge losses and don't have that much of cash reserve, they cannot say that I will give you a hike. That is not possible. They have to cut costs for survival. So it depends on the company situations. For example, a company which does not have the cash reserve but cannot go to bank to get the credit, it has to cut cost. It cannot give hike. And therefore, I don't think that what they have done is something to retain the talent. Of course, if the employees know that they have money and therefore Asian Paints have paid it, then it is all right, fine. They want to say that, yes, we are with you even in this situation. There is one question from Dr. Subramaniam. Chetan Joshi ji, the clean energy has done that. It could, a model employer. There is nothing called model employer. Now, I am very averse to that term model employer, because at one time when I was working in the public sector, they were being considered temple of industry by the government, Nehruvian era. Then we say we are model employer. What was that? You employ surplus people and you create social security or whatever you call it. We call it for large campuses and all these things. For example, like IIM Calcutta also. And then you say that I am a model employer. That's not right. So there is no model employer. It depends on the industry. It depends on what is the forces with which you are working, what is the context. And then you say that only model thing is authenticity. Only model thing is that you are talking what you are thinking, you are behaving what you feel is right, and you are taking people together. That is absolutely important. You may be abrasive, as I have talked about jobs, but yet you are trusted because you are not fake. Mr. Subramaniam, have I answered you? May not satisfy you, but that is my view.
Yes, 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 sir. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no more question, it looks like. If I have missed someone, you can take the audio and you can ask the question. Yes, there is no question, it looks like. So, Bhaskar, would you like to close the session?
Thank you, Professor Bhattacharya. I think we gained a lot from your insight and from the wealth of your experience. Very insightful presentation and a very, I would say, heartening discussion on authentic leadership. Thank you once again, Professor Bhattacharya. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you,
sir. Thank you
It
so
is
much.
my pleasure. And the video will be available. And on this topic, I am authoring an article that should be available on the article section, not now. I have to refine it. So maybe in another 10 days so that you can go through it. Thank you and good night
Thank
to all of
you.
you.
Thank you so much. Good night to everybody.
Thank you and good night to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, Swati, for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.